everybody, and welcome to How to Web Live Focus Edition, the Invisible Enemy, powered by Bitdefender. Cybersecurity products are mostly created to be sold and used in a business context, be it a corporation or small and medium enterprises. The consumer market is definitely there, but the consumer market is significantly smaller than the business market. This year, a lot of professionals have started to work from home, therefore putting the spotlight on the home infrastructure. From a cybersecurity point of view, the home infrastructure has many more risks than the office infrastructure that they were previously using. To discuss about this, we've invited two special people. Our guest today, Jay Balan, is the Chief Security Researcher at Bitdefender, one of the top cybersecurity companies in the world. Our guest, Andrada Fiscutean, is an accomplished writer published by the likes of Wired, Ars Technica, and many others, but also a cybersecurity fan. So before kicking off, I want to say a big thanks to Bitdefender for powering this episode and empowering our internet experience safety. This is it, How to Web Live. Andrada, Jay, welcome.
Hi everyone, I'm Andrada. I'm a technology journalist, and I'm not alone today. I have Alex J. Balan, script kiddie and doing InfoSec since 1998. He also runs the bug bounty program at Bitdefender. And we're very excited to talk to you today about what's happening in cybersecurity and the whole picture of working from home while trying to help kids with homeschool and also trying to be safe. Welcome, Jay.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, pretty good.
How's the pandemic treating you?
Well, I'm also working from home, which poses additional challenges because I'm also trying to do radio from home. A few minutes ago, I just sent a news package to the station. But other than that, I'm doing well. How are things for you? How have these months been for you?
Interesting. That's the way I put it. I mean, for me, I actually made my peace with it since March. I personally, I believe that it's gonna last a lot. So it's not gonna be something that's gonna pass very soon. So this is the status quo. I'm making my peace with it. I've made my peace with it. And I'm punching through, and it's all good actually. I didn't have any kind of bad experiences other than not being able to go to the pub as much as I would like.
I have to ask you, what are some of the coping mechanisms that you're using? And I'm still talking about the pandemic here, not the cybersecurity industry.
Well, I mean, my go-to thing whenever I have to deal with something has always been, ever since I can remember, it could be worse, you know. And if you look at things through this prism, you know, it definitely could be a lot worse. I mean, this looks, in the whole grand scheme of pandemics, I mean, from the movies that we've seen, I guess, you know, this is like literally the least painful, harmful pandemic that I've heard of. I mean, you would have expected zombies and all that stuff, you know. I mean, this is definitely, it's obviously more dangerous than a cold. It's far more dangerous and lethal and deadly, and you need to take care of yourself, right? But, you know, staying indoors and having to deal with a kid has proven to be not that bad in the end. And I mean, again, it could be a lot worse. Also, I'm a gamer, and I also play a lot of video games, and I like to do stuff on my computer. For me, things haven't changed that much.
But you're also playing a musical instrument, which works as a way of...
I mean, having hobbies definitely works. I would encourage everybody that doesn't have a hobby, you definitely should. It's like a medicine for the brain. Having something to do, having something to kind of think about and put your mind to. Having hobbies and doing stuff is definitely exercise and medicine for the brain. Exercise for the brain is medicine for the brain. So if you don't have a hobby, guys, get a hobby.
I bet that a lot of people have called you during these months and have asked you questions about working from home and staying safe while doing that. And I was wondering if you could tell us what are some of the I don't know, things that you suggested.
Well, I mean, if we're switching to cybersecurity now, right?
Yeah. But we'll go back to to music and hobbies and everything else.
So, because if you think about it, one of the most important things in life, if not in cybersecurity, is stay sane, right? If you want to stay safe, I mean, I guess the first thing that you got to do is stay sane. Mens sana in corpore sano, right? If you have a healthy mind, that's going to help having a healthy body and a healthy lifestyle. But moving towards cybersecurity, the one thing that kind of changed a little bit is the focus on the home network, right? Because everybody working from home kind of puts the focus on the home network. And if anybody would have said like 3 years ago, your home network needs to be as secure as your corporate network.
Yeah.
That would have been something unheard of, right? And unfortunately, not a sufficient amount of people say it now. But yeah, your home network, you need to treat your home network with the same kind of rules, regulation, policies that you would your corporate network. Because if your home network security is more relaxed and you get compromised there, then, well, through your corporate network may get compromised. So that's kind of the first thing that came to mind ever since people started talking about work from home. And then the whole concept of eliminating the corporate network. This is the fun part, right? Because if you work from home, then you have to use a VPN to connect to corporate resource. Sometimes the VPN doesn't work. You have to reset your passwords, and you have to connect to different types of assets, which you may not have routes for. A route is a networking term where I say like a path in the networking world to an asset. You need a route to a server or a computer in order to be able to access it. So without these paths properly defined in your corporate environment, it can get kind of tricky. So this is why a lot of companies, including ours, have started thinking about exposing some of the assets in the internet in order to facilitate access to the employees. And that shifts the mindset of the CISOs and the CIOs of the world, because you have to start eliminating the private network. So yeah, there's a million things that kind of changed to the better. It was a long time coming. These changes were supposed to happen a long time ago. The pioneer, by the way, do you know who the pioneer of the, as we call it, zero trust concept? Do you know who the pioneer of zero trust was?
No, but I would be interested in knowing.
Google. And do you know why?
No.
10 years ago, I'm going to give you 2 hints. 10 years ago, Aurora, or as we say in Romania, Aurora. Ring a bell?
I cannot connect the two so far.
Okay.
More hints, maybe?
One more hint. China.
China and Aurora. And zero trust architectures.
Well, zero trust was a consequence of that. So, long story short, in very few words, Google got hacked.
Oh.
So yeah, their internal infrastructure was compromised, and the operation name, or whatever you want to call it, was called Aurora, and it was compromised by China 10 years ago or more. And they started a new project because of that called Beyond Corp. So if you Google/Beyond Corp, you're going to find the foundation for what we call today zero trust architecture. So that's when they gave up all the systems using a certain operating system, and they switched to Linux and Mac. And then they started to kind of have this focus on authentication and identity management rather than having a private network. So all the access to all the assets within Google now are kind of exposed directly in the internet. And the way people have access to them is based on a different set of policies called identity management. And you have a set of rules for your identity, and you have a lot of logging systems that say you've been there, 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 and there, and there, and there. You've accessed that and that and that at a specific time. And then based on what was granted to you in terms of privileges, then you can access the resource X, Y, Z, like your development server, your GitHub server. I mean, not GitHub probably, but Bitbucket or whatever they're using for code management and so on and so forth. And if you get compromised, the rest of the company doesn't get compromised. That's kind of the magic trick here, because you can get compromised, but when you get compromised, because they're working under the assumption, Zero Trust is working under the assumption that everybody is already compromised.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of shape your whole architecture based on that assumption. And that's a very healthy assumption. I know it's hard to swallow for a lot of people, but it's a very healthy assumption to assume that your employees are compromised. We have 1,800 employees in the organization that I'm part of. It would be stupid to believe that at least one of them is not compromised.
Yeah. There's a lot of conversation about COVID and working from home security and breaches even. And I was wondering whether you think this is just a media hype or not. Do you actually see more attacks or more changes that are implemented by companies in order to prevent attacks?
Well, I do believe it's a media hype.
Okay.
But it's worth mentioning that in cybercrime rings, they're always going to leverage the big news. They're always going to leverage something that people will click on, something that would be relevant to the people. So right now, they're probably going to leverage the US elections. Get a sneak preview on who's in the lead in the election, right? So they're always going to use a message that's very compelling for the people to click on and access and see what's going on. For example, in March, I think end of February, early March, everybody was looking for statistics on COVID, right? And back then, there was a new file on the internet that was called coronavirus live map.exe, which was, I think it was a banking stealing Trojan. It wasn't ransomware. It was a backdoor that apparently didn't do anything on your system. It would display a map. You would believe that it's an actual map, but instead it would kind of hook into Chrome, Firefox, and all the browser and start harvesting whatever people were typing in and sending that data to a remote server. And that was, again, a very popular thing to distribute because everybody was looking for that live map. And there was, up until, I think it was mid-March, early April, when the resources that were accessed in terms of live statistics about coronavirus were kind of established and everybody knew where they were getting their data from. Up until that point, nobody knew. So whenever people saw coronavirus live map.exe, this is an application that's going to show coronavirus in real time worldwide, it was very appealing. So that's kind of the way things go, right? With each big event, with each thing that kind of draws the attention of people, people will click that stuff.
Well, that's true. And when it comes to securing yourself or securing your company, the company you work for, a lot of people might argue that they don't have enough money to do this. They don't have a big budget to make some sort of changes to augment the level of security they have. And I was wondering, what's your take on this? Do you feel that we need big investments in security, or whether there could be small things that we could do to increase the level of protection? Well,
many people say that security, the InfoSec industry, is pretty much like insurance, right? The more you invest in insurance, then the bigger what do you call it when they pay you back? Something bad happens. But yeah, I mean, InfoSec is risk management, yeah. But here's some tips and tricks that companies can use to kind of augment their security. First of all, and the most important thing, the absolute most important thing, forget that you know anything. It's weird, I know. Do not believe that you know stuff, because trust me, you don't. You're gonna learn that the hard way. Don't forget everything that you've learned, but doubt everything that you have. First of all, that's a very important thing. When we kickstarted the bug bounty program roughly 6 years ago, we secured everything. We did, like, I don't know how many pen tests, and we hired external companies to do pen tests. We thought that we covered absolutely every corner. And we ended up paying a guy about $40,000, just one guy, in the first month, just to one person. Because the creativity of hackers is endless, is infinite. They're gonna find ways, and you're gonna say, but that's not fair. He's not playing by the rules, you know. But they don't play by the rules, and nobody in cybercrime, nobody plays by the rules. We wanted to play some war games, and one of the exercises that I kind of mentioned was like, I'm gonna go to that guy's laptop when he's not near the laptop, and I'm gonna backdoor it, and then we're gonna use it to pivot and do some bad stuff. And then they said, but you know, that's not according to the rules. So you're not supposed to be able, I mean, you need to have access to the laptop. Okay, but who says I have to play by the rules? So first things first, expect the unexpected and believe that you do not know everything, and you're gonna learn a lot. Now, second, there's such a thing as a baseline, which is kind of meeting criteria, meeting certifications. If you go to ISO 27001, or SOC 2 Type 2 or SOC 2 Type 1, there's a number of kind of standard criteria for InfoSec, which if you meet those, you're in pretty good shape, but they're difficult to meet. And I guess the easiest thing that you can do is get a few badass hackers, like 2 or 3 of them, really badass, and give them, this is going to sound again very, very hard to swallow, give them free reign, give them the freedom to do anything they want with your network. And when I say that, I mean, do not argue with them, do not prosecute them if they find a vulnerability and they exploit it. One of the biggest issues in InfoSec right now, and I'm going to take this opportunity to address it, to talk about it at least, is hackers being prosecuted when they're being white hats. So hackers being prosecuted when they're doing responsible disclosure. There's this awful case in Australia where a guy found some serious issues in a bank, and he very responsibly disclosed the vulnerability to the bank, and then the bank pressed charges and the guy went to jail. And that's wrong on so many levels, because discouraging hackers from finding vulnerabilities in your system doesn't mean the vulnerabilities are going to disappear, and somebody else that may not be that ethical is going to find them and exploit them, and you're going to be in serious trouble if somebody that doesn't tell you about your problems is going to find those problems and exploit them. You're not going to know about them, and they may be present in your infrastructure for months, if not years. So expose yourself. That's the first thing that I would say. Expose yourselves, encourage people to try and hack you, and be thankful if they do, because at least you're going to learn about that, and you're going to be able to kind of close those holes and patch those vulnerabilities before somebody with bad intentions will come up and do something very bad to your infrastructure. So yeah, I guess exposing yourself and allowing people to tell you about vulnerabilities is one of the first steps that you can do. Put something on your website that says, you found a security issue with our system, just tell us, nothing's going to happen to you. This is a very first and basic step that anybody can take, and so few do. And at least you're going to learn about your problems, and you're going to have an opportunity to fix them. Obviously, with sufficient budget, then the second step would be opening up a bug bounty program in which you actually reward people for finding vulnerabilities in your system. But the challenge is a very hard pill to swallow. When I tell somebody, you know, would you let somebody hack you? They always go, no. So if I ask the Boston, the MIT University, would you let me hack you? Well, actually, they would probably say yes. But the general answer that I get to that question is, what do you mean? No, I'm going to send you to jail, and it's a bad thing. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I was trying to look at this from the bug bounty hunter's perspective. And I know that at some point there was an initiative in Romania in which the local CERT wanted to be like a midpoint between the bug bounty hunters and the companies. And I was wondering whether this route could work and could, in a way, protect the people who are genuinely nice and trying to help different companies better protect themselves.
Well, then the CERT would have to do a better job at communicating this.
And I'm not sure if it's still ongoing.
Because you see, if the CERT, the Romanian CERT would do this, that would be great. That would be awesome. But it's not in any official communication. And as such, let's say a friend of mine identified a serious vulnerability in a certain company. And let's say that for the sake of argument, that serious vulnerability enabled an unauthorized potential attacker access to the accounts of all the companies using that, I don't know, that vulnerable company. Let's say it's a shipping company, right? And then as an attacker, you would have access to all the accounts of all the banks that use that company to ship credit cards. You'd have access to all the online stores, especially in this day and age, that ship all kinds of packages to different people. And you have access to all of that, but you would not be able to share that information because under the Romanian law, it would be forbidden for you to even know that.
Okay.
And yeah, ideally, if the CERT would facilitate that communication, that would be great. But I don't know anything about that. Only
one thing I've noticed when it comes to their way of announcing incidents is that more recently, I don't feel that they shy away from mentioning the names of the companies that are hacked. I've recently seen something
but that's a different
where banks have been involved, and I specifically saw the names of those banks, which is nice because it's maybe it works as an incentive to help them protect their systems.
I'm sorry to contradict you, but I don't think it does. Just shaming companies for getting hacked is one thing. I'm not saying it's not effective, it may be, but it's a different story. What I'm talking about is making it a safer haven for hackers to identify and report vulnerabilities, essentially literally making the world a safer place in the end. Because if we're not allowed to do that, then the vulnerabilities are going to still be there for years up until somebody exploits them in a big way, and then you make the news.
But if you buy water from the supermarket and there's a problem with a specific brand that has contaminated water, as a consumer, would you like to know which brand that is or not?
What do you think?
Well, but it's the same with banks, maybe, because as a consumer, I want to know if my money is safe.
Well, yeah, but okay. So you as the consumer would want to know if the bank is safe. That's great. Now, what if I told you that I know the bank is not safe? Again, purely hypothetical, purely hypothetical.
Okay.
So purely hypothetical, I know that the bank is not safe, but under Romanian law, I'm not allowed to know that.
Okay. And maybe
implicitly, I'm not allowed to tell them about it.
Okay. That's strange. Maybe there's something that could change there too.
It should, but it's difficult because again, if you tell people, let me hack you, they're going to be like, oh, no. And I always say the same thing, it's better me than that guy from that foreign country that may literally try to hack you as we speak. And if you have a hole in your system somewhere, and trust me, you do, then you would rather know about it from me than hear about it from the press. And this, unfortunately, doesn't really fly. And ideally, CERT would handle that communication, but they should make it official in public.
How are the banking Trojans doing? Speaking of banks,
Well, they're great. So
making money, having fun.
yeah, I mean, a most recent one leverages something that, going back to COVID, one of the key effects that COVID had on a lot of people, unfortunately, was kind of getting a lot of people to lose their jobs, right? So it's not a fun thing to talk about. It's definitely one of the very tragic consequences of the whole pandemic. And besides that, it kind of got a lot of people to worry about their jobs. So everybody, I think in most industries, is very job sensitive right now. I mean, would you agree?
Yeah, I do agree that a lot of jobs are at stake right now.
So with people being just job sensitive, there's this new actually wave of a banking Trojan, by the way,
Mhm.
that's distributed initially via email. So there's an email that says, and this is the weird part. So mind you, if you get this email, it's probably not safe to open it. In which says customer complaint number 7,431 against you. Download the PDF report here, and it leads to your termination. And this is the Bitdefender, whatever and this is the company's UK office, or the company's headquarters, or the company's outsourced HR department. And it's very targeted to the company that the person works at. They've done their homework, and they kind of structure the email in such a way that it does make sense to the employee. It's believable that it comes from an outsourced HR department, because many companies outsource HR, especially in termination cases and customer complaints. So it very much looks like that. And when you go, it's usually towards a Google Drive, and a lot of companies use Google infrastructure. And at the end of that Google Drive, you supposedly download a PDF file, which is actually an executable with a PDF icon. It's either a PDF or a Word icon. And that's a banking stealing Trojan in most cases. And mind you, by the way, and I have to say this in full responsibility, in like 90% of the cases, all the samples that I've seen were 0 days, were not detected by absolutely anybody in the cybersecurity industry. If you upload it to VirusTotal, you get like 0 out of 69 solutions detect this. And companies, I had the detection for that, but for whatever reason, they kind of shift a little bit. I think that we catch it on behavioral analysis, but it would have to actually be executed in order for us to catch it. But at first glance, that sample is not picked up. So it's highly successful, and it leverages this job security. It's always an email that says, there's a customer complaint against you. This is the termination document. This is the customer complaint. Or in some cases, this is your bonus. Because this is your bonus. You've done such a great job, and your supervisor recommended you for a bonus, and this is the documents for you to collect your bonus. And it's very believable.
Yeah, why do you think it's like that? Why do you think that so many of these pieces of software rely on 0 days? Because 90% is a lot.
Well, I mean, if I think about it, it may be that it's 90% of all the things that actually reached me.
Okay.
There's a lot more that were blocked at the mail gateway level. But let's be fair. I mean, their solutions, no matter how good they are, bypassing antivirus or bypassing security solutions is not impossible, right? So you have to keep that in mind. It's always best to have a security solution installed, because it's going to be able to automatically filter out a lot of the stuff, so you don't have to. And by the way, just personal hygiene on the internet is not sufficient, because there's a number of legitimate websites that got hacked and start delivering malware. For example, many people say, I only visit a few websites, and the websites that I know and I trust them. And that may be so, but what happens if one of those gets hacked? And there's countless examples when that happened. Even here in Romania, we've had a very popular live.something.row that was doing live broadcasting of a certain TV station, and that website got hacked. Thankfully, quotes, I mean, could have been worse, much like the coronavirus. They were only doing crypto mining. So that means it wasn't the website, once it got hacked, the hackers weren't delivering any malicious content per se. I mean, they weren't delivering ransomware or banking Trojans or stuff like that. They weren't stealing any kind of credentials. However, they were using all the browsers that visited that live streaming website. They were using the browsers to mine cryptocurrency and make money that way. So do not trust that you have personal hygiene on the internet. Do not trust that. You have to have a security solution installed that can pick up on these kind of things. But back to the original point, not everything is infallible, and I think nothing is infallible. And every now and then there's samples that are not detected. We add detection for them. We understand how they work. We add machine learning algorithms, models, sorry, and we detect them in the future. But there are situations when some samples do get through.
You've just mentioned ransomware a few seconds ago, and I've just written a piece about hospitals attacked with ransomware in Romania. And I was wondering, what are you seeing if you look at the intersection of ransomware and COVID? Is there something interesting there happening as we speak?
Right. Yeah, so big news in the media. Hackers slow down COVID research. Hackers attack hospitals, and this kind of big letters to kind of create this emotion towards COVID and hackers and so on and so forth. Well, as far as I've seen, at least, they're not targeted attacks against hospitals, right? I think that even the bad guys would not compromise hospitals in a time like this. They don't want that. It's what I would call, from my Quake days, splash damage, right? So it's a machine that can get infected with ransomware. It's probably at some point, without the proper security measures, is going to get infected by ransomware. They're spreading waves of ransomware and delivery through all kinds of websites, and even jumping from one computer to the other, as we've had it in 2015 with WannaCry. And if you have an unpatched machine on your network, then that machine is going to get infected from the network with a ransomware strand, probably WannaCry or something like that. And it's not targeted against a specific system. They're not interested in just hospitals. The way they actually work in this is very interesting. They do separate the type, they do distinguish between the type of computer they've infected. So if it's a home computer, they usually look at the way the directory names look like. So if it's Andrada's personal computer, they're going to ask you for $600 in ransom. But if they see server X or file server Y or something that looks like a company name and it's all automated, then they're going to add a digit to the ransom, if not more. So the ransoms are custom made for depending on the type of computer they infect. There's actually been a case where a hospital was infected with ransomware, and I'm hoping this is not an urban legend, when the hackers actually gave the encryption keys to the hospital so they could decrypt their data for free.
Yeah, I heard that too.
So
let's hope it's true.
Yeah, I do hope it's true. I have no confirmation on whether or not it's an urban legend or it is true. I haven't spoken with the people working at that hospital, so I hope it's true. But yeah, it's splash damage, as I was saying. You know, somebody in that hospital clicked on some random stuff that they were not supposed to. That computer got infected, and I saw a screenshot of I think it was an EKG machine or something like that, an imaging machine, and it was running Windows, and it was on the same network as the computer of that employee that got infected. And for network segregation, that means that EKG machine was not on a separate network, right? And poor security software installed on the machines led to that. Somebody clicked on some stupid stuff online, that they got infected, and then through the network they infected any other Windows machine that was susceptible to the malware. So it's just bad security orchestration, if you will, on the hospital's part. And mind you, by the way, I did this talk at IC Health a while back with input from a friend of mine that works in a hospital. I will not disclose the name of the hospital, but he told me, he sent me this large file, like liquor, you know, like I should probably publish that file at some point, because I was speaking to him earlier and he said that the issues are still there. He was telling me about Wi-Fi networks in the hospital with very easy to guess passwords, about the security system being on the same network as that Wi-Fi, all the surveillance cameras on the same network, all the printers, all the other equipment on the same network, imaging machines with Windows 3.1. I actually said that that's a good thing. Because Windows 3.1 is way too old for anybody to infect. So, you know, keep it like that. So yeah, he sent me this really huge text file, and if you read it, it's insane. I mean, you know, in Romania we have this saying, I would grab my hair, and I would if I had any. But
do you know, from my conversations with hospital administrators and managers, do you know what scares them more than having to pay a ransom? Having their salaries published online or their contracts, which is something that ransomware gangs tend to do more and more.
do you think?
Yeah.
Well, are you sure? Because the way I've seen it, I mean, ransomware is an automated process.
So instead of encrypting files, they threaten different entities of publishing their data.
Well, yeah, but I don't want to have them lower their guard on anything, but that doesn't happen very often. I mean, in cybercrime, nobody spends time with targeted attacks. It's all mass market. It's all about, you know, attempting at millions, if not billions of people. And it's literally like in marketing, it's a funnel. Mm-hmm. You know, you send a blast wave towards 1 billion people. Out of that, you have like 100 million clicking, and then 1 million actually opening the file, and then 100,000 actually getting infected. Or you send that wave that says, I know what you've clicked, and I've seen you watching porn because I've hacked your camera, and that's from credential stuffing leaks from online databases getting leaked. So you scare somebody into believing that you hacked them and you hacked their computer, and you tell them, and because I found this is your password, and this is your password, and this is your password, this is what makes it believable. And I saw that your password is Andrada123.
No, it's not.
Okay, now you're gonna have to change it. And all the other passwords that you have, you know, like I like my glasses 123 and all that stuff. Now you're gonna have to change that as well. And then they find these passwords out of online database leaks. So whatever website you register to, and all of us are registered to at least a few dozen, if one of them gets hacked, then somebody gets access to the password that you had on that website. And then they're going to send you an email saying, I know that this is your password because I hacked your computer, and I've watched you online watching porn, and I've watched you doing this, and they've watched you doing this and that and that, and watching videos like this and that and that. And well, funny enough, you know, the match on their target audience is pretty high, because I know it's going to sound as a shock to you, but some people do watch porn, and some people do watch some really weird stuff online. You know, I don't judge, we don't judge, but they don't have a high success rate because people see that. And I've had people coming to me and asking, I got hacked because this guy knows my password and he sent me this, and I've done all those things. And well. Yeah, and this is a true story. Somebody actually came to me and told me these exact words. I got hacked. This is my password, and this guy saw me doing all of these things. And I told him, you know, I don't judge. It's okay. You didn't get hacked. Relax. You didn't get hacked. He got your
We all.
password from a database leak, and he just tried his best to guess your tastes. And he guessed them apparently. And they send this email to like billions of people and hope that somebody's going to open them. So I think that if you wanted to target somebody to get kind of to blackmail them by saying you're going to release their documents, I'm going to respectfully say that those are isolated cases and they don't happen that often. The most common blackmail cases are, and by the way, this is something that people should be aware of, how should I put this? Somebody seduces you online, literally. They start having a conversation and they get into actual, nudity with their victim, and then they blackmail them because they record the whole session.
I see.
This does happen, and again, I know people who were subject to this. They asked for about $8,000 in blackmail. Otherwise, they would release the video. They get the LinkedIn contacts, the Facebook contacts of that person, of the victim, and then they threaten, okay, I'm going to send this to your mother, to your brother, to your wife or husband. Why not? Let's not discriminate. And to your coworkers, this is coworker number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they threaten to send that video to the coworkers. And it's an actual thing, and it does happen a lot. So if you guys or girls talk to somebody online, get to know them a lot, and don't send nudes on the first date. Because they're not going to bother spending time with you more than one night, by the way, because for them, it's an investment. That time invested with one victim, for them, they have to kind of make money out of that. Otherwise, they're going to move to the next victim. That's how they make money. It's like a job for them. So send nudes on the third date, okay? So that's 3 dates.
Okay, we should write that down.
Yeah.
I was wondering, you say that there are very few targeted attacks,
Well, yeah, because targeted attacks take effort.
but have you seen something really interesting lately?
Well, yeah, I don't know if the paper is out yet, but we have seen, for example, a government institution in a certain country being attacked and not knowing about it, having their infrastructure compromised, their domain controllers compromised, and they had no clue that is happening. And the actor, once the investigation finishes and we can confirm it, was another state, another country. So I cannot share more than that, unfortunately, but I can say that a very high, how do you say minister in English? Because ministry sounds something like religion.
I think, yeah, I think it's the correct word.
Well,
We often talk in cybersecurity about nation states attacking each other, but we don't talk much about companies attacking each other. Is this also happening, and to what extent?
I don't think it happens. I mean, it, like anything in the world, if it can happen, it will happen, right? So there is this law. If you have to remember something, if something can happen, it will happen. But when we're talking about big companies, they attack the attacks. I mean, the fight between them is usually in the commercial side, in the commercial sector. Us, the labs, we're friends with each other. We even share threat intelligence with the labs from other companies. So the fight is mostly done in the commercial space. Arguably, there's a competition in which, who has the better technology and who can catch the most threats and all that stuff. But as labs go, the devs and the red teams and everything, we share stuff with each other. The InfoSec community is one of the greatest communities in the world, and there's a lot of sharing. I think it's also because of the accountability / responsibility that's on our shoulders. Because and I go back to the part about knowing the vulnerabilities. There's this saying in New York, if you see something, say something. And in InfoSec, if I see that there's the potential for something to get compromised, that could be literal. I don't want to be dramatic here, but there could be literal lives at risk if you don't say something and that hole doesn't get patched. We held off, for example, the publication of one of our research papers for a year and a half to allow the company to fully patch their entire infrastructure and all of their products, because if we would have published before they patched, then a lot of bad things could have happened based on our research, and we didn't want that accountability. So yeah, I think that the InfoSec community is one of the greatest communities in the world, simply because we aim to share. For us, responsible disclosure is one of the most important things, and we genuinely believe that it makes the world a safer place, the whole world.
Speaking of which, you mentioned the fact that you started working in cybersecurity in 1998, if I remember correctly. And I guess that a lot of people ask you how things have changed since 1998. So I would like to ask you, what are some of the things that haven't changed?
Whoa. So one thing that hasn't changed is the thing that got me into cybersecurity, and that's rats.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about, you know, big teeth, the plague, and long tails. I'm talking about what we currently call remote access tools. You know, we used to call them backdoors. I don't know why we don't do that anymore. But yeah, so the moment I got into InfoSec was when a friend of mine called me on my landline, because that's what we used back then. Some of you don't know, landlines are these phones that you have are always connected to a wire, and they have these discs, these round discs that they use these pulses to tell the operator what number they're trying to dial. And dialing is, I'm not going to get into that. So this guy called me and said, Jay, I just discovered this program that allows you to control another person's computer. All you have to do is just send it. If they execute it, you have full control over their computer. You can do anything you want. And I was fascinated by that. And that program was sub 7. And back then there were 3 huge backdoors, sub 7, back orifice, and NetPass back in 1998. So this is one thing that hasn't changed. Right now we call them remote access tools, and they provide hackers, they connect to a command and control server, which enables hackers to remotely control hundreds of thousands of computers enrolled in what we call a botnet. Back then, you only had one computer that was the C2, which was my computer, and one was the victim, which was, well, the victim and the client. After that, I actually did a talk once on the history of cybersecurity. One of the things that was pivotal in InfoSec was the year 2001, I think, maybe 2002, when some guy, actually I think a Romanian, started to automate all the hacking tools and all the hacking, all the vulnerabilities that were discovered. He started to automate them to hack the entire world. So let's say that was a vulnerability. There was a vulnerability in the Apache web server, which is a very popular server that saves web content, right? And we knew about it, and we weren't using it for bad. We would test one another's systems to see if they were vulnerable. Actually, another popular one was the first Samba exploit. Samba is like the file and print sharing service. And I remember myself getting hacked by a friend. He told me, you forgot to patch that machine. And then I patched it, of course. Well, we would only do this to each other. Now, this guy used that exploit and said, I want to try the entire internet. And thus, well, not the first one, not the first worm, because the first worm was the Morris worm, but the first actually meaningful, dangerous, causing chaos across the internet work came to be. And that guy would, I remember that the time script kiddies started being so many, especially in Romania, they would do scan a whole range of IP addresses, and they would just pop machines that they would hack, and they had no idea what they were doing. Absolutely not. They would just run a program that would hack like thousands of computers on the internet, and they would have no idea what they're doing. But the flip side of that was that from that moment onwards, companies started paying more attention to cybersecurity. And we had a harder time doing pen testing. We had a harder time because usually they wouldn't know about it, and we would be like, okay, that's that vulnerability and that vulnerability, easy money. We would hack very easily into their systems if we wanted to. Completely legal. They would ask us to. Don't. And then once somebody started hacking the whole world, whenever a new vulnerability surfaced, whenever a new exploit was public, he would use that, or they would use that to hack the whole world. And those programs were distributed to everybody. In every internet cafe in Romania, you would see people scanning the internet for different types of vulnerabilities, again, without having any idea what they were doing, and hacking like thousands of machines. So that made the world a safer place in a sense. So that was a turning point, in my opinion. And that was one of the moments when the world woke up and said, you know, we have to take this cybersecurity thing more seriously.
And there was another inflection point around that time when people started to write malware, not just for fun, but also for profit. When do you think that this inflection point was? A shift in perspective.
Well, let me get back to you with another question. What was the moment ransomware became successful?
The Bitcoin.
Yes. Yes. So the first ransomware attempt was in 1986, I think, when a guy in the US encrypted another guy's files and said, I'm going to decrypt them if you pay me money. However, there was no anonymity involved, and there was literal money involved. So the guy showed up with $200 and the police. So that was like the first ransomware attempt. And the thing that kind of changed the whole game was Bitcoin, because Bitcoin enabled hackers to receive payments while remaining under the cover of anonymity. And I guess that cybercrime took a turn towards financial with the first fraud attempts. I know we don't like to call them hacking, they're not hacking, but they are related to cybercrime. When people sold the cathedral in Alexandria, and some guy sold a jet engine, and well, obviously they didn't sell anything, but they did collect the money for them. And so online fraud was very popular. And then phishing, I think, was before ransomware, was definitely before ransomware. And the shift towards making money out of viruses, I think it was, 2004, right after the Conficker virus, I think. So Conficker was probably the first, again, dangerous worm that would self-propagate using the file and print sharing exploit, much like WannaCry, using Eternal Blue. And then after that, the first password stealers started to pop up. So they would crawl the database, the password database from Chrome. It was a small SQLite, which is a small database file, non-encrypted, completely accessible by anybody on your computer. And those password stealers would kind of look for that file. And then they started, then Steam came up and they would look for Steam accounts. And then they would look for Skype conversations, that was another one. And then ransomware. So yeah, I think 2005, 2006 was the beginning of making money out of malware. About the same time was the beginning of making money out of phishing accounts. They would start selling credit cards. So when somebody steals your credit card, they're not going to use it. Well, in most cases, they're going to sell it. So they're going to make a collection, and they're going to, on the deep web, you can find collection of 40,000 credit cards, $39. It's that cheap. So yeah.
Yeah, even rats are cheap. You can buy one for a few
Yeah,
dollars maybe.
so another way they're making money is by not hacking, but by renting services.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not a hacker and you want to make money from cybercrime, you can rent a malicious ransomware or a malicious rat, or a rat or a ransomware because they're malicious. So you can rent them. You can rent a custom version of them. You can rent the delivery method, and you're going to invest about $15,000 probably for delivering ransomware strand to about a few 100,000, 200,000 victims, potential victims. And the collection platform, so you can invest that money if you're willing to do something illegal. And usually there's a good return on that investment. Not that I would suggest you do it because it is illegal and you will go to jail because people like me and my colleagues will catch you. We have a roughly 100% success rate on catching bad guys. So yeah, you don't want to do that. But what they're doing, for example, in the case of DDoS attacks are when they cut off a service, when they're shutting down, like they've done in the 2016, they shut down Netflix and they've shut down Twitter and they've shut down a number of services. So that's a denial of service attack. The denial of service attack is a distributed denial of service attack in which they use 10,000, 100,000, many hundreds of thousands of zombies hacked computer to attack a specific target. So they hack, let's say, 500,000 devices, and it's not just computers anymore, right? It's also IoTs. It's also cameras, baby monitors, routers, printers, smart fridges. You know that urban legend about 200,000 smart fridges that were sending spam.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they would have like this vast array of devices, cameras, computers, what have you, and then they would rent you a chunk of that. So you would pay $15 for 5,000 hacked computers or hacked devices to attack a website for 15 minutes. So you would say, okay, I want a chunk of 5,000 devices for 15 minutes. How much? And it would be, let's say, $15. Okay, you pay $15, and then those 5,000 devices would hit your target with everything they've got. And picture it, everybody has at least 100 megabits at home, even poor countries like America. You know, we know you have good bandwidth over there, at least not compared to us. So multiply 5,000 by 100 megabits on average, and you get how big that attack is going to be, and it's only $15.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they're renting these services, yeah.
It's quite affordable. As we spend a lot of time inside this year, and we had some time to contemplate about the whole philosophy that surrounds the field of security and privacy. And I was wondering if your thoughts, your philosophical thoughts, if I may, have changed over these months.
No.
Not at all.
I mean, I've always had some kind of unpopular opinions when it comes to privacy, which sometimes contradicted what was very popular in the media. I don't see Facebook as evil. I don't see Google as evil. I know what they're doing, and I still don't see them as evil corporations. Not to say that they're good, but when it comes to privacy, I think that the most important part is not to deny Google or deny Facebook or turn off our computers and move into the mountains, which is kind of what the tendency is when people are hyped about the whole privacy bit. Again, as I was saying, remember that you don't know everything. I see people with a nice sticker on the video cameras, and people believe, there's people that genuinely believe that the sticker on the video camera is helpful for their privacy, much like there's people that believe that the earth is flat and that vaccines cause autism. They're all wrong. The earth is not flat, vaccines do not cause autism, and the sticker on your video camera is useless. And you know why? Because literally all the attacks that target the video camera involve social engineering. It's those blackmail attacks in which somebody tries to get you to undress, and you're going to take the sticker off yourself. There's literally no other attack that targets the camera to take picture. There are attacks that harvest information for blackmail, targeted attacks. They target the microphone, not the video camera, because ambient audio is much more interesting than seeing pictures of me in my briefs.
Yeah, nobody cares about those anyway.
Yeah.
We have space for just one last question. And I was wondering, since the pandemic will still continue in the next months, maybe if you could tell us what your favorite hacker movie is? Whether it's something we should all watch right now?
So absolutely, hands down, my all-time hacker movie favorite is Hackers 2 Operation Takedown. It's the story of Kevin Mitnick being chased by Tsutomu Shimomura. And related movie is The Pirates of Silicon Valley. If you want to see a movie about Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, it's not Jobs. And it's not the movies from Hollywood. It's The Pirates of Silicon Valley. That's the movie to see if you want to see the history of Apple and Microsoft. So yeah, Hackers 2, Operation Takedown, and The Pirates of Silicon Valley.
And I would also recommend Tehran, which is an interesting movie about the diplomatic as well as cyber relations of Israel and Iran. And since it's not an American movie, it's done differently, which is something that we should also have in mind, because we've seen maybe too many American movies lately due to Netflix and other platforms. So thank you again, Jay, for being here today. I hope it was fun for you and for everyone. And I'm sure that How to Web will continue this series of interviews with people who help shape the tech sector in Romania, but also in Eastern Europe. Thank you.
It was great to be here, and thank you for having me.
Bye.
That's it, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you had a great time. Thanks for watching. For more episodes, keep an eye on our social media channels. And until next time, stay curious.